Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. A few days ago, I logged on to Twitter just to check out what was going on. And as soon as I signed in, I saw that my entire feed was blowing up. Apparently, just a few hours before, I'd missed the proclamation of war, so to speak, between Gwenyth Paltrow and her company Goop versus a San Francisco-based OBGYN, Dr. Gunter. Now, Dr. Gunter is somebody who's very active on social media. I followed her for a long time. She blogs frequently. She gets a lot of press, a lot of attention, a lot of active comments on her blog and on her social media sites. And so I started digging a little bit, going, what does one have to do with the other? How are their paths even crossing? And it didn't take me longer than 5 minutes to see exactly what ground zero was for this epic war of words between Goop and their in-house doctors versus this OBGYN who's out in California and blogging about her take on lots of things related to obstetrics and gynecology. And so I read through the original Goop article, and then I think it was a day later, Dr. Gunter posted her response back. I think that day she had actually given quotes. I mean, this thing got so much press. I mean, there were quotes in all the major online outlets that you could think of. Everybody from Us Weekly and Redbook, and I mean, it was everywhere. It was just everywhere. Anywhere that you could see, they had quotes about what was going on. And so I think she gave a quote then, and then the next day she wrote her own blog post. And I have to say, okay, when I read what Gwenyth Paltrow had written, along with what her in-house doctors had written, and then I read what Dr. Gunter had written in rebuttal on her own personal blog, I was furious, and I knew that I had to say something. Okay, so let me give you a little taste of what I'm talking about, of what the war really is. Okay, so I'm going to read you a little excerpt from the original Goop article, and then an excerpt of the rebuttal from Dr. Gunter's article, and then I'm going to tell you why I'm so furious about this, okay? So Goop has this really long article on their website. It's titled Uncensored, A Word from Our Doctors. And it's so funny because actually on Gwenyth Paltrow's Twitter account, she named it, or she tweeted, "When they go low, we go high," and then linked to this article. And I'm going, what is she talking about? So basically, they're talking about the practice of Jade egg insertion into your vagina. Okay, this is something that Goop presented a while back, and they were responding to Dr. Gunter's basically very vocal, very public response saying it's a ridiculous idea. So Goop writes this. On their Goop website, Gwenyth Paltrow writes this: "There was a tremendous amount of press pickup on the doctor's post, which was partially based on her own strangely confident assertion that putting a crystal in your vagina for pelvic floor strengthening exercises would put you in danger of getting toxic shock syndrome, even though there's no study or case or report which links the two, and also stating with 100% certainty that conventional tampons laden with glyphosate, classified by the WHO as probably carcinogenic, are no cause for concern. Since her first post, she's been taking advantage of the attention and issuing attacks to build her personal platform, ridiculing the women who might read our site in the process." Okay, so shot one fired by Goop here. Okay, and then I think the next day or so, Dr. Gunter writes, And this is just an excerpt from her blog where she says, the editors at Goop find me quote unquote strangely confident in my quote unquote assertion that putting a crystal in your vagina for pelvic floor strengthening exercises would put you in danger of getting toxic shock syndrome, even though there's no study or case or report which links the two, end quote. I am not strangely confident about your vaginal health. I'm appropriately confident because I'm the expert. I did 4 years of medical school, a 5-year OBGYN residency, a 1-year fellowship in infectious diseases. I am board certified in OBGYN in 2 countries. I'm board certified by the American Board of Pain Medicine and the American Board of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation in Pain Medicine. And I'm appropriately styled Dr. Jen Gunter, MD, FRCS, FACOG, DABPM, ABPM for pain. A woman with no medical training who tells women to walk around with a jade egg in their vaginas all day, a jade egg that can recharge with the energy of the moon, no less, is the strangely confident one. Okay? So there you have it. War of the words, okay, online. And this, it just gets... I mean, if you read the whole thing, you'll see this is such a tiny excerpt of both of their accounts. Gwenyth Paltrow writes a whole bunch, and then 2 doctors write underneath the Goop article about their thing and how their assertion and kind of their take on what's going on here. And then Dr. Gunter's blog is actually fairly long as well. Here's what bugs me about all of this, okay? It is completely insane that on top of everything else that women have to deal with, right? We have so much going on in our bodies, whether we're pregnant or we're not pregnant, whether we're teenagers or middle-aged or elderly, there's so much happening in our bodies and so much that we don't know. The last thing that we need are such wars happening about our health. We don't need more fighting about what's right and what's not right and what does research say and what does research not say and what about the moon, and we don't need that. There's enough of that, okay? I'm not even talking about the research side of it. I'm not even going to get there right now. What I'm saying is this exact conversation that's happening, the conflict that they brought up here, really highlights the biggest issue that nobody is talking about. This is not about research or not research, celebrity or not celebrity. The thing that nobody's talking about here is, why are women turning to celebrities for advice in the first place? Let's look at that for a second. Why is there a space in the marketplace for somebody like Gwenyth Paltrow to speak up and even suggest that jade eggs is a good idea to stick in your vagina? Why does that happen? You know why it happens? I'll tell you why it happens. It's because we've got this conversation going on about who's the expert and who's the expert and who's the expert. We are completely forgetting about the fact that women are the experts on their own body. That conversation never comes up. And so we're trained from a very young age to look to somebody else to tell us what's happening in our own bodies. Maybe it's a double board certified OBGYN. Maybe it's a Hollywood movie star. Maybe it's somebody else completely. But the fact is, the real problem here is that there is a space for somebody like Gwenyth Paltrow to say something like this, and for people to believe her and to follow through. And the reason it's happening is because we're not talking about the most important expert in women's health, and that is you. That is you. I don't care if your doctor has 78 degrees from 78 of the top universities in the entire world. They will never know your body the way you know it. Never, ever. And the only thing that they can do is treat whatever it is that you tell them is going on. So if you don't know how to tell them what you're concerned about, they're never going to be able to help you. And then you get into situations where you start feeling like your doctor's not listening, your doctor doesn't take you seriously, your doctor doesn't pay attention. And hey, those are all very legitimate things, right? Not all doctors are created equal. There are some really not good ones in the field, just like any other profession. Not all of them are very good. Totally get that. But if you don't bring 50% to the table, no matter how good your doctor is, they're not going to be able to help you. They're not going to be able to help you. But the thing is, if you're given the tools to know your body really, really well, and then to be able to speak up about it, you're not going to need to look to people like Gwenyth Paltrow or even your doctor to know what's going on, or to know that something's going on, because you're going to know that. Now, I don't know Dr. Gunter personally. She practices very close to where I am, but I don't know her personally. I've never met her. I don't know how much of this she instills in her patients and really encourages and empowers her patients to speak up and tell about their own bodies. It's possible she does that. It's possible that she doesn't. I have no idea. Okay? But the conversation veered to, I'm the expert because I know the research and I have the medical training. I'm the expert because I empower women. And nowhere in there, we're hearing from the women themselves. You see where I'm going here? So what needs to happen is, let me give you an example. We'll go with an example here. So this is this jade egg that Gwenyth Paltrow is suggesting. Basically, her premise is put it in your vagina and it's meant to strengthen your pelvic floor. You know, if you know the Kegel exercises, you're supposed to squeeze to strengthen your pelvic floor. She asserts that inserting a jade egg is safe and that's what it is meant to do, and it does it very well. Okay? Regardless of what either of these two women think, let's go with this example. Okay, so when your pelvic floor is weak, you might see it as every time you cough or you sneeze or you laugh really hard, you pee a little in your pants, right? It happens to a lot of women. It happens before childbirth to some. It happens to a lot of women after childbirth, especially if you've delivered vaginally, especially if you had a lot of babies, especially if you had big babies. It happens. That's just how it is. It happens to a lot of women. So it's not just you if you're going through this, but stick with me here with this example. So let's say that you have these moments where you're at a party and you're cracking up, you laugh and you just go, oh God, it happened again. Or you're down with a cold and not only is it horrible that you're just sneezing your brains out, but now every other, hour you're having to change your pants because you're just leaking a little bit. Okay? In that case, what do you do as the patient, as the woman whose body this is going through? You've got to recognize what the symptom is. You might not know the term pelvic floor dysfunction, and that's okay. That's not your job to know that. That's okay. But you've got to figure out what's happening in my body. Is this normal to what I normally go through? Not is this normal on the global scheme of things. Is this normal for me? And likely the answer is, especially, if you're leaking like that, likely the answer is no. Or maybe you've ignored it for a little while and go, well, it's been happening for the last 3 years, but it didn't really happen before that. Right? So you have to first, it starts with you. There's no way your doctor is going to know this if you don't say something. So it has to start with you first. Not your triple board certified physician sitting in their fancy office. Not some celebrity who's coming up with these things in some gorgeous mansion on a cliff somewhere. I don't know if that's where Gwenyth Paltrow lives. I'm just assuming that's where she lives. But you see what I'm saying? It doesn't start with either one of those two. It starts with you. You've got to figure out, what is my body saying right now? What's happening? You don't have to know the answer to that, but you've got to figure out that my body's trying to tell me something. Something's changed. Something's different. Something's not normal for me. Okay? And then with the help of a trusted medical professional, maybe that's your PCP, maybe that's your gynecologist, maybe it's family medicine, like whatever, you can figure out what's going on and figure out the best course of treatment. Right? And it's at that point that you can bring up these things that you are reading, things that you've been through, things that you have a history of. That's when you should bring them up to your doctor. That's when you should go to your doctor and say, hey, by the way, I read something on this website called Goop. I don't know if you've heard of it, but she says that Jade eggs can strengthen my pelvic floor. What do you think? I love it when my clients do that. Now, obviously, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't give medical advice. But when it comes to their wellness, when it comes to their emotional health, totally ask me. And then I'll tell you what I know. I will educate you based on my education on how this applies to you, if it does at all, if you should consider it, if it's dangerous, whatever that is, right? So for example, you go to this doctor, so you've now decided this is not normal for me. This is kind of being a big pain. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't know what this is, but it needs to stop. Okay, I just want to know what's going on. So you go to your doctor, you tell them, hey, every time I laugh, every time I sneeze, I leak a little bit into my pants. What the heck is going on? And at some point, your doctor might say, well, we might be looking at pelvic floor dysfunction. We might be looking at something, whatever, right? And then you bring up what you've read, and they'll tell you what they think about it. And then let's say your doctor suggests physical therapy. Now, again, here you are as the expert of your body. If you've tried physical therapy for this particular problem before and it hasn't worked, you have to tell them that. If you wanted to try something else, acupuncture, acupressure, you've heard that's worked well, now's the time to bring it up. That's a conversation that needs to happen between you and your doctor. Even if the source of your information is from a celebrity, that conversation needs to happen between you and your doctor together. Together. Your doctor can only help you with what you share with them. And your doctor cannot help you with anything that you hide from them or that you don't bring up. It's not possible. It does not matter what their education is. It does not matter how much research they've done. It doesn't matter. Because you are the expert here on your body. You cannot forget that. When you are seeing your doctor, there are two experts in the room. A medical professional who is an expert on the medicine and the science of women's health, and you, who is the expert on your body alone. You are the only one who's lived in your body for as long as you've been alive. Even your mom isn't the expert on your body. Not anymore. And she probably never was. It's just that you were too young to be able to say anything about it. Right? So essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is your health and your health care, whether it is before you get pregnant, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, whatever. Your health has to follow 3 steps. Getting appropriate health care has to follow these 3 steps. Number 1, that you have a problem is your job to identify. You've got to figure out what your body's telling you. You've got to pay attention, and you have to speak up when something is not normal for you. Okay? I'll give you an example for myself about this. And I hit home that it has to be normal for you so hard because it really doesn't matter what happens to the masses. Okay? I cannot take an adult dose of any medication. I am seriously sitting here taking a child's dose of anything that's prescribed to me. And thank goodness I have built a medical team around me who understands that. And so they don't prescribe me adult doses of medications for anything, because I have a horrible reaction to everything, including Advil. I can't do it. So even though the masses say the dose is 2 pills every 4 to 6 hours, I can't do that. And I know that. Right? I have a friend who knows that if she sits out in the sun for 5 minutes, it does not matter how hot it is outside. It could be 40 degrees. And in December, can you tell I'm a Californian? 40 degrees is very cold for me. She can be out there in the sun. She gets eczema on her face. Does that happen to everybody? No. I've never even had eczema before. Does it happen to other people who have eczema too? No. That's her body. That's how her body responds. So she knows that, right? So when something is going on that is off of your normal, and I know we have this pull to want to talk to other people and go, hey, does this happen to you too? And we're kind of looking to gauge, like, is this a problem or is this not? And this totally happens when you're pregnant, right? Hey, I'm having this weird discharge. Did that happen to you when you were 16 weeks pregnant? Doesn't matter. I mean, we're looking for reassurance, and gosh, I did do it too, and I still do it sometimes. But does it matter? Because if it's not normal to you, that's a problem. That is enough for you to speak up and say something, okay? So that's step 1. Your job is to identify that there is an issue. Pelvic floor dysfunction, contractions, infection, something's happening and I don't know what it is and I just don't feel right. That's how I knew that I was in preterm labor, actually. I'll tell you that. I didn't have any of the classic symptoms. If you look at the list of preterm labor, and they give them in like the standard pregnancy books, or you just search online March of Dimes and stuff, you can see what are the signs of preterm labor. When do you call your doctor? And there's like 10 different things that they say. I didn't have a single one of them. You know how I knew I was in preterm labor? I called my doctor and said, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happening. Something doesn't feel right. Because I knew what my baseline was. I knew what my baseline had been for the several weeks before that point. And this was different. This was different. That is all your job is. You've just got to figure out something's not right. That's your job. Then step 2, your doctor's job is to figure out what the problem is. They can't do their job if you don't do your job. They can't do it. It does not matter. Harvard trained, Yale trained, Stanford trained, all 3 trained twice. Like, it doesn't matter. They can't do their job until you do it. And then they go into their expertise. They look at their research that they know. They look into their repertoire and their experiences and what they know about the general human body, the general women's health, whatever it is. How can we apply that to you specifically? But now those are only the first 2 steps. Step 3 has to be a joint decision on how to solve the problem. And that joint decision comes between 2 experts. You as the expert on your body and your physician who's the expert in medicine. You get a say in how this treatment goes. If your doctor is suggesting a medication, you want it to go a non-medication route, or at least consider it, you have every right to say that. And then you have a conversation. Or vice versa. Your doctor is suggesting physical therapy or exercise, or maybe your doctor suggests acupuncture and you go, hey, I actually wanted a pill. You have every right and you have to say something, and you have that conversation. Your doctor may want to stay the standard route of standard medical treatment, whatever that might be, for whatever it is that you're going to see them for. And you might have read something on a website like Goop and said, hey, I read about this alternative treatment that I wanted to consider. What do you think about that? that is a conversation that you need to have. You've got to go through all 3 of these steps, because it is completely ludicrous to me that women are looking to other people for these answers when basically 2/3 of the not quite 2/3 of it, like half the setup, half the answers are coming from you. Right? You've got to figure out that there's a problem, and you've got to be part of the conversation to determine the treatment solution. You have to. That's the only way that you're going to get the best care possible. And this whole thing just drives me nuts, that on top of all this conflicting information, and Dr. Gunter was very good about acknowledging that, research changes very frequently. I mean, all of us have been so frustrated by that at some point or the other, that we believe, research says this medication or this type of food does this, or we have to do certain things. And then a year later, a new study comes out that says the exact opposite of that? We've all been there. It's confusing, it's overwhelming, it's frustrating. And on top of everything else we're dealing with in our healthcare system, we don't need doctors and celebrities and other we don't need them fighting with each other and confusing the message even more. Especially when nowhere in that conversation we're talking about the thing that matters the most, which is how to get you involved in your own care so that you can speak up, you can say something's not right, and then you can get the right answers because you're trusting your body in what happens, in what you need, for what it is that needs to happen. You've got to turn to your body. Taking your body and your instincts and your expertise on your body out of this conversation is totally against any kind of female empowerment message that either one of these 2 people is supposedly standing for. That is what I strongly believe. And that is what I want you to remember. Whether you're trying to get pregnant, you are pregnant, you're trying to stay pregnant, you've got a baby in the NICU, got a baby at home, doesn't matter. You need to be a part of this conversation, and your health care starts with you. So where does this then leave us with the specific conflict? Should you put a jade egg in your vagina or not? I know you're wondering about that. Where do I really stand on this? Well, in the words of Gus Fring from Better Call Saul, don't. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you want to know more about how you can build that muscle to become the best expert on your body and get the best possible prenatal care, especially during your high-risk pregnancy, I would love to hear from you. So you can schedule a complimentary consultation at parijatdeshpande.com. And also, I would love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter or Instagram at parijatdesh. That's PARIJATDESH. I don't want you to be left out of this conversation anymore. We have gone way too long in the advancement of women's healthcare to have celebrities, doctors, scientists, all just spewing stuff and facts at you, when the way that healthcare is going to change, and the only time that it's going to change, is when you get to speak up and speak for yourself. You deserve it, you need it, and I know you can do it. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.